James Halvorson adjusted his stiff collar for the 100th time. The mirror on the wall of the alien shuttle showed a man both nervous and proud. His black diplomatic uniform bore the silver badge of the United Terran Assembly. It sparkled under the shuttle lights. But he didn't feel like shining. He was on his way to a royal wedding and alien royal wedding. The planet below him, Eltraxis, was a massive green moon covered in thick jungles, glowing rivers and cities built into trees and cliffs. It was home to the Corellian Empire, a race of tall, blue-skinned warriors with a long tradition of honor, ritual, and battle. The humans had only recently made peace with them after years of cold mistrust. James had served as a Marine during those tense days. Now he was here as a symbol of peace, a guest at the wedding of the Corellian king's daughter. His mission was simple: attend, smile, don't cause an interstellar incident. As the shuttle descended into the capital city of Zhratikel, James stared out the window. Great stone towers rose between giant trees. Bioluminescent birds flew in swirling flocks. Music floated up from below, deep drums and sharp flutes that didn't follow any rhythm he knew. It sounded strangely powerful. The shuttle landed on a platform made of polished black stone. At least 50 armored Corellian guards stood at attention. Their spears were decorative, but their eyes were sharp. Ambassador Halvorson said, a tall figure waiting for him. The alien bowed with a closed fist to his chest. Welcome to Veltraxis. I am Visital, Master of Ceremonies. James nodded. An honor to be here. Thank you. They walked through long vine-covered halls into the royal palace. Every wall was carved with ancient battles, cosmic animals, and what looked like stars aligned in circles. The Corellians passed by, some nodding politely, others eyeing him with curiosity. A few looked suspicious. He didn't blame them. The wedding hall was enormous. A tree larger than a skyscraper grew in its center, its branches forming a natural dome over 1,000. Guests, floating lanterns, hovered between leaves, glowing in soft colors. Long tables were filled with food James couldn't name, some still moving slightly on their plates. He was seated near the front, among dignitaries and noble houses. The bride and groom hadn't arrived yet, but the room was buzzing with excitement. Human, said a voice beside him. James turned. A Corellian woman in dark green armor stood beside him. She was tall, even by their standards, with sharp silver eyes and a scar running across her cheek. You sit close to the throne? Must be important. James stood to greet her. I'm James Halvorson, Terran envoy. She studied him. Ralith, daughter of King Tharnix. He blinked. The bride. He gave a small smile. No, my cousin is the bride. I only fight wars and scare diplomats. James chuckled. Nervously? Then you're doing a good job. She laughed, which drew a few looks from nearby nobles. You're not like most humans, she said. You're too relaxed. I'm trying very hard not to look nervous, he admitted. Before she could respond, horns echoed through the hall. The lights dimmed. Everyone stood. The king and queen entered, walking slowly beneath a rain of petals. Behind them came the bride, wearing gold armor with flowing white cloth, her face hidden behind a glowing veil. The groom, from a distant Corellian house, walked beside her in matching armor. They reached the base of the tree. A high priest began to chant in a deep voice that made the leaves above tremble. James didn't understand the words, but had explained this was the binding ceremony, a ritual full of sacred gestures, shared symbols, and symbolic offerings. A servant offered James a silver goblet filled with glowing blue liquid. Part of the ritual, Visital whispered beside him, all honored guests must drink in the couple's name. James hesitated. He wasn't a fan of alien drinks, but he had been warned refusing a custom could be deeply insulting. He raised the goblet to peace. He said quietly and took a sip. It was sweet, cold, fizzed on his tongue like starlight. He placed the goblet down and clapped politely with the others as the couple exchanged swords instead of rings. The ceremony continued for another hour. Music rose, dancers filled the hall, and food was served. The bride and groom disappeared through a glowing arch to perform. some private part of the ritual. James finally allowed himself to relax. That's when the king stood. King Thernix was tall, broad-shouldered, with silver braids hanging down too. His chest, he raised a hand and the music stopped. All eyes turned to him. This day marks not only a sacred union, the king said in Corellian, translated by a soft whisper in James's ear from the translator chip, but also the deepening of bonds across stars. He looked directly at James. Our honored guest from Terra has spoken the ancient vow and drunk the Vlaren of offering. In doing so, he has chosen a path most sacred. He has claimed a Corellian bride. The room went silent. James blinked. Wait, what? The king gestured. From the shadows, Ariloth stepped forward. She had changed into ceremonial robes, dark blue, embroidered with silver threads. She walked with slow, steady steps toward the king. James half stood, confusion swirling in his mind. What's happening? Visital leaned in, eyes wide. You drank, you spoke, you made the vow. I made a toast. You repeated the words, it is sacred law. The bride must accept for it to be binding. But Thornix turned to his daughter. Princess Ariloth, do you accept the human's vow? Ariloth looked at James. Her silver eyes narrowed slightly. She seemed to consider something, then nodded once. I accept. The room erupted in cheers. Gart, a chorus of Corellian horns, echoed off the ceiling. Drums began to pound again. James just stood there, frozen. I think, he whispered, I just got married. James Halverson stared at the glowing lights above, unsure if he was dreaming or having a mental breakdown. His hands were tied behind his back, not with ropes, but with golden energy bands that pulsed softly. 2 armored Corellian guards walked behind him. They weren't rough, but they weren't friendly either. Where are we going? James asked, trying to sound calm. To the ritual chambers, one guard said. You must be prepared for bonding. James blinked. Bonding? I already drank the juice and made the mistake. The first ritual, the guard said. There are 5 more, including the night of joining. James winced. That sounds ... romantic. It is not, the second guard said coldly. The guards brought him through a long hallway lit by soft blue fire. The walls were covered in glowing symbols and carvings. Some looked ancient. Others looked like warning signs. James's heart was pounding. He didn't mean to propose. It was all a mistake. But now, in the eyes of the Corellian Empire, he was married to Princess Ariloth, daughter of the king, and leaving now would mean disgrace, dishonor, and possibly intergalactic war. Inside the chamber, James was untied and left alone. The room was warm with thick carpets, steam rising from crystal fountains, and a table filled with more glowing food. He wasn't hungry. Minutes later, the doors opened, and Aralith entered. She had changed again, this time into a tight ceremonial suit, made of black and gold armor plates. She walked like a soldier, not a bride. You sit like a man waiting to be executed, she said. James stood. I thought I might be. She looked at him carefully, her silver eyes calm but sharp. You made a vow. I didn't know it. Was a vow, James said quickly. I thought it was just a toast. You repeated the words. You drank from the goblet. You stood in front of witnesses. I didn't mean it. Ralith stepped closer. Meaning doesn't matter. Tradition does. James sighed and ran a hand through his hair. So what happens now? You stay, she said simply. If you try to leave, it will insult the king and it will shame me. That means war with Earth or worse. Can I talk to your father? Explain that it was an accident? He already knows, she said. But the law is the law. Even the king can't change it once a vow is accepted. James dropped into a chair, defeated. I came here to make peace. Not make family. Ariloth didn't smile. You've done both. She poured a drink into 2 cups and handed one to him. He hesitated. She raised an eyebrow. It's only tea. He took it. They sat in silence for a moment. Then Ariloth spoke. Again, softer this time. I did not plan this either. But now you are part of my house. That makes you a target. James looked at her. Target from who? There are many who hate Earth, many who think humans are weak, soft, greedy. Your presence here gives me power, but it also gives my enemies a reason to attack. James leaned forward. Wait, so this marriage could actually cause a rebellion? She nodded. If not handled carefully, yes. James rubbed his forehead. Great, this just keeps getting better. Oralith stood. Tomorrow we begin. You're training? Training? You're a prince now, she said. And the husband of a warrior princess. You must learn our customs, our laws, and how to fight with a blade. I already know how to fight, James said, standing. I was a Marine. James stood in a courtyard surrounded by Corellian soldiers. He wore light armor that didn't fit right and held a curved practice blade that felt too heavy. Oralith circled him, wearing a black training suit and holding a real sword. Your stance is wrong, she said. Your feet are too close. Widened his stance. She kicked his leg. Too wide now. You will be dead before the first breath. James grumbled. You have a very strange way of saying good job. Oralith smiled faintly. I do not give false praise. They trained for hours. He blocked, dodged, and rolled. He fell many times. She didn't go easy on him, but he didn't give up. By noon, the courtyard was filled with soldiers watching. Some laughed when he slipped. Others frowned, unsure whether to admire his effort or mock it. Finally, Oralith called a stop. James dropped to his knees, panting and soaked with sweat. Do I get a medal now? No, she said, but you earned one less insult. He chuckled. I'll take it. That evening, he was allowed to walk through the gardens. Visitel appeared beside him, quiet as a shadow. You are making a strange kind of progress, the master of ceremonies said. Is that a compliment? It is a warning, Visitel said. There are many in the palace who do not want you here. They see your marriage as a stain. I didn't exactly sign up for it, James replied. Yet here you are, and some say you saved the princess from shame. She was not loved by the noble houses. Too wild, too strong. Now she has a human husband, and many wonder if you were. Sent by Earth to control her. James frowned. That's not true. Of course it's not, Visital said. But truth matters little when fear is stronger. Later that night, James returned to his quarters. Before he could rest, a loud boom shook the walls. Alarms echoed through the palace. He jumped up. Guards shouted. Lights turned red. James opened the door. Oralith was already running toward him, sword drawn. Stay behind me, she shouted. What's happening? Assassins, she said. They breached the outer walls. They ran through the palace halls. Screams echoed in the distance. Smoke filled the air. James grabbed a weapon from a fallen guard, a plasma spear. It felt better than the practiced sword. They turned a corner and found two masked figures planting an explosive near a pillar. Oralith charged. James followed without thinking. The fight was fast and brutal. Oralith moved like lightning, slicing down one attacker. James blocked a blade with the spear, countered with a kick, and stabbed the other in the leg. The explosion never went off. When it was over, Oralith looked at James, breathing hard. You fought well. I'm a fast learner, he said. She nodded slowly. Perhaps not the worst match. That night, the palace returned to silence. The dead were honored. The traitors who helped the assassins were found and taken away. James stood on a balcony, staring at the alien stars above. He had come here for peace. He had found danger, politics, and an accidental marriage. But something had changed. For the first time, he didn't feel like a visitor. He felt like someone who might actually belong. James Halverson had been many things in life: a soldier, a diplomat, and once, a failed guitar player. But never in his wildest dreams had he imagined himself as a Corellian prince. It had been 3 weeks since the wedding accident. 3 weeks of strange alien food, sword training, royal duties, an awkward silence between him and Princess Adalathi's new wife. Their marriage was still the talk of the Empire. Some nobles supported it, hoping the bond between Earth and Veltraxis would bring power and trade. Others whispered in corners, calling it a shameful mistake and demanding the king annul the bond. But the king refused, and now James and Arloth were stuck together. 2 warriors from 2 different worlds, forced to play nice for the Empire. For peace, and maybe, just maybe, for each other. It was morning in the mountain city of Juratakel. The sky was silver blue. The jungle below was alive with light and sound. James stood on the palace balcony wearing his new Corellian tunic, dark blue with gold trim. He looked like royalty now, but he still felt like a stranger in someone else's skin. "Adjust your shoulders," came Arloth's voice from behind him. "You slouch like a wounded animal." He turned. She wore ceremonial armor polished to a shine, her silver eyes focused, her black hair tied back. "Good morning to you too," he said. "We have a council meeting today. You must speak." Father ordered it. James groaned. "Why me?" "Because the nobles want to see what kind of fool I married," she said bluntly. He laughed. "Well, they won't be disappointed." The Grand Council Hall was carved into the mountain. Massive stone statues lined the walls. Warriors, kings, beasts. Corellian nobles sat in a half-circle of thrones, dressed in flowing robes and heavy jewelry. Most looked old, powerful, and angry. King Tharnix sat on the high seat, his expression unreadable. James and Arloth walked together to the center platform. "This session is open," the king said. "Let the voices rise." A noble named Lord Drekash, sharp-faced and proud, stood first. "This human is untested, a stranger. We are warriors. He is not of our blood," Arloth replied calmly. "He fought beside me during the assassin attack. He bleeds the same." Another noble, Lady Jiva, added, "His presence breaks tradition. Our daughters now ask if they must marry off-worlders to gain power." James finally spoke. "I didn't come here to marry anyone. It was a mistake. Yes, but I stayed. I fought. I trained, and I respect your culture. I don't want to take anything from you. I only want peace." There was silence then. Lord Drekash sneered. "Words are wind. Let him prove himself in the trial of blood." The gasps echoed across the hall. Arloth's jaw tightened. "That tradition was ended 2 generations ago. It can be renewed," Drekash said. "Let him fight in the circle of flame. If he lives, we will accept him. If not, ... he dies with honor." The king raised a hand. "So be it." Circle opens at dawn. That night, James sat in his quarters, sharpening the blade Arloth had given him. His hands trembled slightly. Arloth entered without knocking. "You shouldn't have spoken," she said. "I had to. You don't understand our politics. Trials like this are designed to kill. They don't want a fair fight. They want to humiliate me by killing you." James met her eyes. "So what? Back out and look weak." "You are weak," she snapped, then softened. Compared to them, he smiled. "Thanks for the vote of confidence." She sat beside him. For the first time, her voice lost its sharp edge. "I didn't choose this either. James, I was meant to lead troops, not attend endless ceremonies. My cousins always called me a mistake. Until you arrived, and now I'm the center of the Empire." He looked at her. "Do you hate it?" She paused. "No, but I hate how we got here." They sat in silence for a moment. Finally, she said, "If you want to run, I'll help you. I can sneak you off-world. No one has to know." James stared at her and then shook his head. "No, I'm not running." The next morning, the circle of flame was opened. It was an ancient arena carved into the mountain cliffs. Lava rivers ran. Below the fighting ring, hundreds of nobles and warriors filled the seats. James stood in the center, wearing light Corellian battle armor and gripping his curved sword. The heat from the lava made sweat drip down his back. Across from him stood his opponent, Trokar Tel, a mountain of a man with black eyes and tattoos down his arms. A champion from the highlands. No mercy. No fear. The gong rang. Rokar charged. James dodged the first strike, barely. The second cut across his arm. Blood flowed, but he held his ground. He remembered Arleth's training. Stay low. Turn with. The swing, strike from the side. Used every trick he had learned. He moved faster than Rokar expected. Stabbed, rolled, kicked. But Rokar was stronger. Too strong. With a roar, Rokar knocked him to the ground and raised his blade for the final strike. James grabbed a chunk of lava rock and slammed it into Rokar's knee. The warrior roared in pain. James rolled aside, got to his feet, and slashed across Rokar's arm. The crowd gasped. Rokar swung wildly. James ducked and then, in one clean move, struck the champion's side. Rokar fell. Silence, then. Cheers. Even the nobles rose to their feet. James stood over his opponent, bloodied but alive. He had survived the circle. He looked up. Stood watching from the royal balcony, and for the first time, she smiled that night. The palace held a feast. The same nobles who once doubted him now raised their cups in honor to the human prince. They shouted. James sat beside Ariloth, his arm bandaged, his face tired but proud. You have changed something, she said. He looked at her. Did I win their respect? No, she said. Why mine? For a moment their eyes met not. As strangers, not as enemies, but as equals. And maybe, just maybe, something more. The palace of Juratakel was alive with celebration after James's victory in the circle of flame. The nobles toasted the new human prince, while dancers spun beneath floating lanterns. Yet beneath the laughter and light, shadows moved. James felt it a cold weight pressing on his chest. He was no longer just a visitor. He was a player in a game far older and darker than any battlefield he had known that night. After the feast, James sat alone on the balcony overlooking the jungle. Canopy. The moon was full and bright, casting silver light on the swirling leaves. Arileth joined him silently. Do you feel it too? She asked. He nodded. Something's wrong, she sighed. There are those who see your presence as a threat. Not just nobles, others? James frowned. Who? Rebels. Spies. Old families who lost power because of the peace with Earth. Before James could respond, a shadow detached itself from the tree line below. A figure dropped onto the balcony. A slender woman in dark clothes. Who's there? James asked, standing quickly. I'm Lara, she said softly. Friend. James lowered his weapon slightly but kept his eyes sharp. Lara looked at Ariloth. Princess Ariloth nodded. You're trusted. It's enough to warn you. Lara said, There's a plot against Ua against the bond between Earth and Veltraxis. James felt a chill. Tell me everything, said. Lara led them to a hidden chamber beneath the palace, away from prying eyes and ears. The rebels want to break the alliance, Lara explained. They believe humans are invaders. They want to kill you, then blame Ariloth's death on Earth. James clenched his fists. Why now, after all this time? Because you survived the circle of flame, Lara said. You proved the impossible. They fear what you represent, a new era. Ariloth frowned. They will strike during the Festival of Stars, when the whole city is distracted. James looked between the two. How many? More than 50, Lara said. Armed, trained, and ready? James swallowed hard. What do we do? Prepare, Ariloth said, and trust no one. The next days were a blur. James trained harder than ever. He learned Corellian fighting styles, weapon handling, and palace defense. He studied the political maps with Ariloth and Lara, planning every possible attack and escape. At night, he walked the palace walls with guards. His presence was a comfort to some and a threat to others. One evening, Izatal approached him quietly. The spies are everywhere. the master of ceremonies said. Even in your own household. James raised an eyebrow. My own household. Yes, you must be careful who you trust. Loyalty here is often bought or forced. James clenched his jaw. So who can I trust? Vizital smiled faintly. Me. The Festival of Stars arrived a week after the feast. The entire city of Juratikel glowed with light. Floating orbs hung between trees, illuminating streets, filled with laughter, music, and colorful costumes. James and Urloth walked together, blending in with the crowd. Stay close, Urloth warned. This night will decide the future. They passed stalls selling glowing fruits, weapons, and strange trinkets. Suddenly, James spotted a figure moving suspiciously near a pavilion, a tall man in a dark cloak. Carrying a small package, James grabbed Aralath's arm. There, Aralath's eyes narrowed. She nodded. They followed the man through twisting streets and alleys at the edge of the city. The man stopped, set the package down, and pulled a strange device. James moved forward. Stop. The man spun, revealing a mask and a hidden blade. Araloth drew her sword. Fight. The fight was fierce. James and Araloth fought side by side against the cloaked attacker. The man was fast and skilled, but James's training showed. With a quick move, James disarmed the man and knocked the device away. The package hissed. It was a bomb. Araloth kicked the bomb into the nearby river. Water hissed as it doused the device. The attacker tried to run, but Lara appeared from the shadows and tackled him. The crowd had heard the commotion and gathered, confused and scared. James raised his voice. Everyone, stay calm. This was a failed attack. The city guards arrived, taking the attacker into custody. Back in the palace, the mood was tense. King Tharnix held a council meeting with James, Araloth, Lara, and Vizital. We must find the rebel leaders, the king said, before they strike again. James suggested we need better security and a way to warn Earth. They must know this danger is real. Araloth agreed. The rebellion will not stop unless we show strength. Vizital added, and uncover the traitors inside. The king nodded. Then we prepare for war. That night, James lay awake. He stared at the ceiling, thoughts racing. He had come to Veltraxis to help build peace. Instead, he was trapped in a dangerous world of politics, violence, and betrayal. But he also felt something new, a fierce determination to protect Araloth, the Empire, and maybe the future of both their worlds. The planet Veltraxis had never seen a wedding like this before. It wasn't just a ceremony anymore, it was a statement. It was a stand against rebellion, fear, hatred. And for James Halverson and Princess Araloth of House Corel, it was the beginning of something far greater than either of them had expected. They had married once before by accident. This time would be by choice. But first, they had to survive. The royal palace was glowing with lights. Hundreds of alien guests from noble houses, planets, and distant moons had arrived for the grand event. Warriors wore armor polished to perfection, diplomats dressed in flowing robes. The crowd was filled with excitement, but also tension. Aralith stood in her private chamber, staring at her reflection. She wore silver ceremonial armor, shaped like feathers, symbols of her house and heritage carved across her shoulders. Her hair was braided in the warrior tradition, but a small blue crystal from Earth rested on her crown. Lara stood beside her. You sure you want to go through with this? Aralith didn't answer for a moment. Then she said, I never expected to respect a human or trust one, but James. He never gave up. He never ran. He's not like the others. Lara smirked. You love him. Aralath rolled her eyes, but she smiled. Maybe?
Oh.
In another room, James adjusted his ceremonial robe. It was half Corellian, half Earth-style, symbolic of the unity between worlds. He still wasn't used to the attention, but after everything they'd been through, he had learned how to carry himself like a prince. Vizital entered. The final security sweep is complete, but there's been chatter. The rebels may try something. James nodded. Let them try. He checked the knife hidden in his boot. The grand wedding was held in the Sky Garden, floating platform held by ancient Corellian tech high above the city. Beneath them, the jungle sparkled with light. Stars glittered above as James walked. Onto the platform, every eye turned to him. He wasn't just the outsider now. He was the symbol of peace. The man who had survived the circle of flame exposed the rebellion and fought beside the Corellian princess. Moments later, Ralith appeared. The crowd gasped. She walked with power like a warrior queen. As they stood facing one another, king. Thernix began the vows in both Corellian and Earth Standard. But just as he raised the ceremonial staff, a scream echoed across the sky. Then, explosions. 3 enemy airships rose from the jungle, painted black and red. Bull banners flew. From their sides, the crowd panicked. Guards rushed forward. One of the ships fired at the sky, Garden blasting a support tower. The platform shook violently. James grabbed Ariloth and pulled her behind a stone shield. Rebels, Lara shouted from her rooftop perch. Attacking the wedding? Visital activated a defense drone. Protect the royal family. James pulled out his blade. We have to get everyone out of here. Ariloth shook her head. No, we end this now. The rebels dropped onto the platform. With jetpacks 10 of them, armored and armed. James fought with the training of both a soldier and a Corellian. He blocked, dodged, and struck with precision. Beside him, Ariloth was like lightning. Her blade danced through the air, striking down one enemy after another. Visital's drone fired beams of energy. Covering the wounded, Lara leaped from above, taking out a rebel sniper. It was chaos, but controlled chaos. The rebels had come expecting a ceremony instead. They had walked into a trap, because James and Arileth had planned for this. On a rooftop across the garden, the rebel commander Velnar watched in anger. They were ready, he growled. This wasn't supposed to happen. His second in command looked worried. Should we fall back? Velnar snarled. No, we kill the human prince and the princess, even if we die doing it. He pulled out a remote device and pressed a red button. A massive bomb hidden under the floating platform activated. A countdown began. 60 seconds. Back on the platform. James fought his way to the bomb as the final rebels were falling. He saw the red blinking light, Arilath. There's a bomb under the platform, she ran to him. How long? Less than a minute. Lara arrived beside them. I can disarm it, but I need time. James looked around. We don't have time. The platform trembled again. One of the support beams was failing. Guests screamed. Guards evacuated the injured. But James stayed. I'll hold the device steady, he said. You'll die if it blows, Ariloth warned. James met her eyes. Then I'll die protecting what we built. Lara worked quickly, her hands moving over alien wires and circuits. The timer hit 10 seconds, then 5, then 3. Done, Lara shouted. The bomb powered down. Silence. Then the crowd roared with cheers. Later that night, after the platform was repaired and the wounded treated, the ceremony was restarted this time. There were no interruptions. King Tharnix stood proudly. We have seen fear, he said, but we answered it with courage. We have seen war, but answered it with unity. He looked at Ariloth and James, and now we witness something greater. A future built on love and trust. He raised the staff. I now pronounce you partners of both heart and house. Princess Ariloth of Corel, and James Halvorsen of Earthbound by choice, by honor, and by destiny. The crowd clapped, trumpets sounded, and Ariloth pulled James into a kiss firm. Fiery and full of meaning. No more pretending. This was real. Months later, the alliance between Earth and Veltraxis grew strong. Trade began. Soldiers trained side by side. New technology was shared. And James. He stood beside Arilath, not just as her husband, but as her equal. A prince, a warrior, bridge between two worlds. Their wedding had nearly ended in fire. Instead, it lit a fire across the galaxy. A fire of hope.